This podcast is powered by The Plug.
Ooh-wee. Hi, y'all. I'm Dani, baby. Living vicariously through myself. All right, y'all. It's that time again. Asking this question first. How is your spirit? You better answer it. That's all right. We answer ourselves. That's not crazy. So once you have that answer, sit with it for a second. All right. Now we're ready to begin. So I have the lovely Ms. Jules in here at my left, and it's such an honor to sit with you. Our story goes from a connection at Gypsy House. My really good friend Lou, who was on the last episode, introduced me to you through an event that you host here in Denver called the Smoke and Stretch. And so I want to give you a second to go ahead and speak to that space really quick about what you're about, what you're doing, and where you see it going.
Well, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yes, I host Smoke and Stretch. I'm so glad you said that because I think I tried to ask you, like, Dani, how do we actually even know each other the other week? But then ADHD, like, right. Totally derailed the conversation and I didn't get an answer. So that's right. I did reach out there. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Liv, for bringing Dani. So yes, I host Smoke and Stretch, and it is an event that I started to host for people, specifically my community and people of color, to fall in love or give them an opportunity to fall in love with yoga the way that I did. Yoga has been colonized and marketed in the West as something that, you know, has prerequisites surrounding what your body is supposed to look like, what socioeconomic class you're supposed to come from, and that it's fitness practice rather than the true essence of it's a spiritual lifestyle. And there's 8 different limbs, only one of which is the physical asana or practice. And within that, it wasn't like core power. So I started hosting these events wanting people to, you know, learn my love. But I thought, okay, well, I have a lot of people that are definitely not going to come to a yoga class if I ask them. They're reasonably skeptical, or they've been traumatized by those other... It's a lot of people. And so weed, I believe, or cannabis, I should say, is a little more respectful.
I ain't worried about it.
Towards the medicine, is and has always been, especially in my life, like the great icebreaker. And so I thought if I could tell my homies that, like, they could pull up, we could roll a joint, and then do some stretching, there's no way they wouldn't like it. And then I thought, let me seal the deal with some munchies afterward. And
works.
Right? And we can all just kick it and enjoy. And I have been so overwhelmed with the response. It is like the biggest. I have so much gratitude for everyone who has supported and continues to support, that we have outgrown the space that we originally started in. You know, I'm able to make enough money now because of the financial support to, you know, I'm reinvesting every penny I make from these events. So I'm, you know, getting like all the yoga blankets, 30 of them just showed up at my door this morning, and getting yoga mats to be able to give out to people, and continue to just make this event grow and hopefully scale it. And it's been really lovely to watch a dream with an intention just kind of take its own path. So I feel really fortunate. So that's what I do. The next one is on the 9th.
Ooh, you know,
and
I'm
then the
going to be there.
23rd. Yeah, so it's Friday nights. It's an alcohol-free zone so that you can do something on a Friday night and be around like-minded individuals and have what seems to always end up being, you know, philosophic conversations thereafter.
And some stimming and unmasking, all the things.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think the brilliance of this event that you have brought together is that there's just so many different people that come. There's like, nobody's worried about how they're dressed, how they're going to, like, everybody's received, everybody is seen, and it is so comfortable. I come from a wounded space of yoga. I tried it so many times. You know, the culture that came in, and it was such a buzz thing, and then there were all these, you know, yoga studios popping up, and I really wanted to get in tune with my body, but in those classes, I was finding myself further away from my body because I couldn't meet some of these stretches, or the instructor would touch me without consent, and I could not stand that. And so speaking to the body language, you sitting there, having us in a space of the awareness of breath has been my favorite thing as a collective, to just hear everybody, breathing in and breathing out, as well as just sitting in it calmly versus okay, we're going to work up a sweat. I'm like, I thought yoga was mindful, but so thank you so much for bringing that. Speaking to body space and speaking, in that, we're going to dive right in. We're going to do it. And I have to shout out Julius here. He's the one that's taking care of this episode. Always just such a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much for being who you is. It's this gold. And then Jules here. Thank you so much for creating space to be present in this with me today, because this is the conversation I'm ready for. So we're going to talk about conscious love, conscious sex, conscious self-pleasure today. And the reason I want to talk about it is because I am simultaneously learning so much about myself, because I've entered a love bond where I'm feeling very comfortable, and I am learning so much about myself in this space because of these conscious choices. See, I had been in a way for a minute in and out of dating culture, hookup culture. I really wanted to have a hoe phase, and that didn't happen. I made friends though. But I think that's just in that lesson I learned that I'm demisexual. And so being demisexual, I really desire that connection. And so hookup culture for me doesn't work. I'm not dissing that. I think it's brilliant if that works for you. But for me, I needed something a little bit more intentional. I needed a connection to where we could ascend together. And a lot of times in my partnerships, there was a lot of drinking before, so I wasn't having sober sex. I wasn't aware of my body, or my partner wasn't in that same space. A lot of times it would get really aggressive with or without consent. And so there was just so much within that, hence why I chose yoga in a lot of instances to connect more with my body. And that was just a misfire for a while. And then in the last 6 months, all of this has transpired where, entering your class and some of these platonic relationships, I recognize if I bring on somebody in an intimate space of, physical exchanges of energy, I'll be so in tune with myself that I won't have to succumb to, or they won't have to succumb to my energy, that we'll just match each other's energy, So your practice is so helpful for that. Thank you, because you bring us intentionally to ourselves, and I just adore you for that. So in all of these things, we have gender identity, gender expression. Again, we have sexual identity and sexual expression. These are very separate things. We have masculinity and femininity, which are not genders. They are expressions. And so in that, as a non-binary person, I'm really starting to understand my expressions more versus the preconceived notion of the identity with the expression, because a lot of people put identity as expression.
Can you give me an example? I want to make sure I'm understanding.
No, I love this. Okay. So for me, my gender identity is non-binary, but my gender expression is across the board. I can per se femme it up, or I can have more of a masculine androgynous style, but I am embracing all those parts, but it's not all at the same time. So every day that switches up. It also switches up within energetic groups that I'm in, or if I'm hanging out with my platonic partners versus maybe I'm feeling a little spicy for my sexual partner. So it's just it's a fluid space. As far as my sexual expression, I am learning so much about that right now. So that's where we're going to speak to it. I want to first ask you, though, in your journey to getting closer to yourself, and you are in the dance world as well, a world dancer, which I have witnessed the pure magic and movement of this human. And one of the most beautiful things that I've witnessed about Jules is her consent to herself, the consent to her allowing and creating more space for her body to move, for her body to be felt and seen, and the essence of that outside of just the physical body. It's an auric field, it's an essence. And I just love how you give yourself consent to be. And so I guess I want to ask, within your identity, and you don't have to get too deep into it, but what is something that within your movement and in your dance has given you more permission to explore yourself and explore with a partner?
That's a really great question. Also, thank you for the concept of consenting with oneself. I hadn't conceptualized it like that at all. Let's see. I think the biggest thing has been my spiritual journey. I think learning specifically like some of the yogic principles that one should live by, for example, nonviolence, that was huge. And I was looking around and like, I was sexually assaulted at 14. So like sex and violence kind of went hand in hand in my story. And no matter how much effort or time I put into deconstructing that, that's still subconsciously there. And in a way, I felt like that has given me an opportunity now to be doubly intentional, whereas I think there can be a lot of violence that just exists as a result of the lack of defining things. And so when we're talking about conscious relationships, it's like not allowing oneself to fall in the default. Or like I was thinking the other day, you know, there's always this thing of, you know, as women asking him, well, what are we? And it's like, why are we asking him? Why wouldn't we just set it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think for me, just being incredibly intentional in all of my life, sex was like a byproduct, just by way of, it's a very important aspect of my life. I'm a very sensual person. I'm a very sexual person, but I really struggle with casual relationships. I think I'm getting out of a wifey complex. I think there's a lot of shit to unpack there, but it has been really hard for me to have casual sex with people and continue it, or even just find the pleasure. I think maybe there was a lot of searching of, oh, well, I'm waiting for the point of feeling liberated in this like situationship, and it's just not happening. So, you know, there's got to be something more to learn here. And I believe it definitely starts with oneself. Like I started taking an audit, I guess, of my pleasure activities. And it was like, why, if I'm, you know, dedicating a time to like quote unquote self-love or to masturbate, is it this, like, it's like a weird rinse and repeat thing. Like, why do I have this lame ass script that like I'm doing even with myself? Like, where's the creativity? Like, where's the artistry? You know what I mean? And for us, the creativity is incredibly intertwined with sexuality. And I have made some of the best content immediately after a lover has left, and I am like not ashamed. So, like, you know, that you've got the like orgasm blush that's happening, and you throw on a little dress and made a bunch of videos. You know, like it definitely affects my life. And so once I was able to feel that a handful of times, I wanted to be able to tap into that more. And it required a lot of deconstructing. So I think the thing now is just slowing down.
There we go.
I think the question is always like, where do you start? And it's like, slow the fuck down.
I love that. I love that. Speaking to, and thank you for sharing that.
Did that answer your question at all?
No, it's this is ADHD and autism. Woohoo! We're gonna keep going around and around with it. We got this. But I love what you were saying about deconstructing that. So we're gonna dive into this little part. I grew up in purity culture, and so virginity was a big word, and I hate that word now. Like, that was where my worth laid.
Yeah.
And when I started listening to people tell me their stories, because there was a lot of shame around sex and pleasure because it was like evil and it should only be between a man and a woman. And it's like they want to say it's holy and all of this stuff, but they don't talk about it. They shame you about it. We're not educated in it. We're just like violence in scripture that like this is it. But it's mainly for the women, right? Because they needed to stay chaste for their husband that's on the way. Pray for him. He's the leader of the house. It's all this garbage I can't stand. But in purity culture, I started really paying attention to when my friends, because I was like I don't even want to say I was a late bloomer. I just didn't sexually explore because I had to deconstruct some things from abuse and things like that. But I showed up when I showed up. And I remember listening to my friends when they would talk about their virginity, if you will, and they would say, I lost my virginity.
Yeah.
I don't understand that terminology, but that's societally what we've learned to say so that we don't even credit ourselves with the pleasurable parts. So then people are going into their sexual space and they're like, well, I lost it.
So-and-so took it.
Right.
There's this element of ownership. Like it is something to be taken from you.
Exactly. And you have no governing over your own body, your own sexuality. And so within it being like, I lost my virginity, anytime somebody says that, I say, wait. Did you lose it or did you give it?
Precisely.
You know, either way, it's your power. Just decide if it's been yours all along and you just need to own it more, or if you need to call it back into yourself from that space. So purity culture really put a damper on how obviously a lot of people view sexuality. Mm-hmm. And so coming out of like, oh, I lost my virginity, it was taken from me at a very young age. But then, you know, you do that whole thing in church where you have all this shame and you go pray and repent and you become a renewed virgin. And I'm like, wait, what the hell? Like, this is dumb.
Actually, that's a thing?
Oh, that's a thing. And then you can like, there's a whole thing where you can like promise ring your virginity to your dad until he gives you away at the altar to your husband. Like, I don't understand. It's so creepy. So your sexual energy, your sexual identity and all these things is owned by a very misogynistic place, right? So with that, how could we ever know conscious love? Yeah. Because conscious love isn't conditional. Uh-huh. It's unconditional for yourself first. So that took me so far away from myself being abused, having it taken, then becoming a renewed virgin, to later only be so confused about my sexuality that I didn't even know literally what to do. I was like making out with my first girlfriend ever, and I was like, I don't know what the next step is because I'm so insecure. I felt shame. I was like, do I give it? Is it being taken? I didn't know. So that consent to myself, speaking to consent, is that I had to go in and consent to me enjoying the space I was in. I didn't know that that was a thing because there was so much of a shame body there. Yeah. And then the more work, you know, obviously after multiple relationships and the healing that you decide to enter, you're going to have these triggers that come up. And they could come up mid sex time, you know, you could be like
literally right in the middle. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so being able to be aware of where I consent to. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a partner doesn't know how to speak to that space because they're in the same boat too.
Right.
And so there's fear there. Like, okay, we're headed for the end result, which is this orgasm or whatever. And we think that only one person is pleasuring another person and it needs to have this result. And we need to be like, it's got to be this and it's got to be like hypersexual. Like you said, slow the fuck down.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. The sensuality, the buildup, and all those things are just as erotic, if you will. They are like, it's like worship.
It's the foundation.
Yeah.
It's like you can't build a house on just dirt that's been sitting there. No, you need to communicate. Okay, you're like excavating, and then you need to lay some ground rules of like how we're going to communicate. Mm-hmm. Now you've got your foundation, and then, hey, let's actually talk about what we like. We need to order all the finishes for the house before we, you know, like there's a lot that goes into it ahead of time. And also consenting to when there's a moment of change and you're like, hey, I actually don't like this right now.
Exactly.
We need to,
in the moment.
Like, pause. Yeah. And being able to, you know, part of it is also like partner choice. Mm-hmm. I think you have to be really real about seeing one's way of communicating and thinking, is their insecurity gonna be so in the way that I can't even get to the level of relationship that I want with them? Again, relationship does not mean like boyfriend girlfriend business.
Right.
Like you and I have a relationship. I have a relationship with Julius. I have like everyone's has a relationship with unique qualities, and if you don't feel like you're even gonna be able to communicate in a safe space, you have no business being in bed with someone. And that's just like on respect to yourself, you know?
And that's an energetic exchange too. Yeah. So like if I'm taking on, if I'm not checking in with the consent that is happening the entire time, like you just said, I don't like how this is right now. I used to be a no till yes person. And now because I've just become this version of myself. I am not carrying all that past stuff, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be triggered and that something could like break down mid session or something. Yeah. But there's even moments of checking in with your partner. What does that language look like? Is it just, eye contact? Is it actual verbal? Is it like actually sensing their body because you're in tune with yours? And so you can feel that electricity if it's like not where it should be, and not always looking for the damn end result.
Fuck the result. What result? Why are you looking for it?
That's
hang
just
out like on the way.
But again, that's what purity culture teaches us, because it's about like diving into this space where you don't have governing over your own body and the other person does. So we give them permission so much more often than we even know. And then before you know it, you are at odds with your partner and you're like, I actually don't like any of this. I didn't realize.
Really at odds with yourself because you're in this performative bullshit relationship of trying to think that, I think especially if you are the one that is physically receiving something, there is a false perception that one's performance is like a live action review, and that it's feedback, and that like when the room is quiet and people are in tune with one another, there's enough feedback. Just like look, listen, feel. You don't need to, it's too much. It's so much static noise, and it sucks to be the person having to perform.
Thank you for talking to that.
Also,
right away.
like when there's ask questions. My favorite thing to break this shit up, I'll be like, hey, 1 second, and then they're like looking all stressed and confused. I'll be like, you want a sip of water? And they're like, what the fuck is she talking about? And, no, just take a sip of water. And you lean back on the bed and you chat for a sec. And they're like, why are we stopping? And I'll be like, I don't know. You have somewhere to be?
Thank you.
Like, relax. Like, having some fresh fruit by the bed. Like, just enjoy. Ooh, like, it doesn't need to be this A to B.
And like we were saying, end result, or just, I think there's kind of like a hypersexuality to get to that finish mark. And so we miss the journey along the way.
The sensuality.
Yeah. And it can take so many different turns. I mean, there's this episode on Goop where this woman is talking about how our orgasm shouldn't be like something where you're tightening up and it's like, and it's like, it should just be like oh, wow, we're just going to keep this flowing. And you get to carry that with you all day. And then you get to get back into it. And you just touch on this sensuality constantly. And it shouldn't have this end result where you never really get to explore or come from that space again, quite literally.
Okay, so speaking of tightening, can we talk about pelvic floors?
Please.
Okay. Yeah. So everyone should be, well, let me preface this. And this is, please guide me in the way to have an appropriate conversation in which all gender identities and bodies are being
I'm still learning that too.
Discussed. Okay. I will say, as a vulva owner and for other vulva owners, everyone should be squirting because it is literally a built-in system to cleanse and really helps against UTIs.
Right.
So all of this clenching, tightening that we're doing is not, what do you do when you're stressed?
Exactly.
What do you do when you don't want something coming your way? This tight business should not be, and I think the vernacular too, there's a wonderful creator on TikTok and she talks about rewriting, why are we being called tight? Why shouldn't it be engulfed or engorged or something that's more hug rather than, because it's resistance.
Right, exactly.
If they're really enjoying themselves, it should not be stiff. And so if you haven't done any pelvic floor work, I highly recommend you get into it. And that can look
I'm learning that.
It's so good.
It is.
So if I'm stressed, I'm not even going to front. I will do it midday. I will be driving in the car doing little Kegels. So when you inhale, you push it out you needed to pee. And then as you exhale, you want to tighten, but only to 30%.
Okay.
And if you do this, men can do it too. Any sort of, we all have pelvic floors. So whatever your body is, this is a great option for you. If you are also someone who is being penetrated, this is incredibly helpful to kind of welcome in.
Thank you.
And it creates, I guess, to this idea of consent with oneself that you brought up, this parasympathetic nervous system conversation. Hey, body, I'm safe. Hey, body, we're good here. Hey, body, I'm leaning into this pleasure. And in fact, I'm going to do something physical to quite literally welcome in. And people will do that during pelvic exams. And so, you know, like I had to get an ultrasound of my ovaries a couple weeks ago, which is the most hideous thing ever. It's cold thing. And like, I've taken some big dicks, but those little like ultrasound wands are some bold motherfucker. You know? Like, it was like really, I left the office feeling very unsettled. Like it's very like wham bam. Yeah. Like that was the most, I think, unaware or like lacking of spiritual situation I've had with my sexual organs in like a decade. And it was at the doctor's office. I'm like, that should not.
That is so much more common than I mean, I've been hearing that a lot. Even my own sister was telling me the other day about her appointment, and she's like, I just feel violated.
Yes.
You know, and we consent to it by signing paperwork, but like
I'm showing up.
Yeah.
But it was the pushing out that I will say of my pelvic floor that did make it, you know, better than I think had I been really stressed.
And I love that you're bringing this part up because I'm going to go ahead and just speak personally for myself. I'm just going to give like a little thing. No, I need more. I need more. But you just keep bringing in. This is why I'm so glad you're in this conversation, because you have quite indeed been a space of me recognizing that I needed to consent with myself. And because just like you having that instruction within, you know, the smoke and stretch where you were having me tune in. So I was feeling more of like my pelvic floor in breathing because you had us literally take so much time to do that instead of like, okay, here's 5 rounds and do it so fast. You're like, do it at your pace, feel it. And just like the comfort of knowing that I could consent to the pace that I wanted.
Find your rhythm.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what has happened before, like I've had, you know, multiple long-term relationships, and then I tried to enter into like this little hoe phase thing. And then I was like dating a couple people, and I was just like, this is just not for me, because I didn't know if I enjoyed sex or not. I felt like sometimes I was doing things out of obligation or performance, or I was really confused about all the terminology out there. Top, bottom, switch, side chick. I don't fucking know. It was just all the things. I was like, can it just be an all around time, you know? And I was like, oh, I guess I have to identify with something like that, where I wanted to be really free, but I just kept hitting roadblocks, whether, you know, it was about my partner receiving or giving. And the identity that we have with receiving and giving, you know, I think we were just talking in the hallway real quick about this. And it was like, we've been in so many spaces where we look at like the whole top and bottom thing is such a big deal. And people are so worried about that. Like there's this brilliant person as well on TikTok. They go by BDEM or moves or something like that. And she was speaking to the space about how we as pleasure is that it's so many different aspects. It's not just like, okay, the skin to skin, it's the mind. And so like, I'm a very audio, like I love audio. So like, I don't need to like have what is the whole idea of what sex can look like. I could literally hear my partner and that's all I need. It's magic. That's like quite literally. So her mind or like if I can just see that like she's enjoying and in her mind she's open and she's not hitting any, or there's not like a wall there, they're consenting to themselves being received. That is also pleasure. When your mind is holding space for me, you are giving me pleasure, even if you want to categorize it as a top or bottom. Like we don't have that in what is going on with my relationship right now. They also identify as non-binary, and I am too. So that adventure has been everything, and consenting to myself that it's okay to enjoy it. I have never really known if I enjoyed sex before. I don't know. I know that there were times that it was like, oh, that was like cool. Like that was great. You know, I probably should go shower afterwards in shame because I was like, I don't feel connected to this person, you know? And so I wasn't fully consenting to myself, accepting myself in the act of or whatever, because in my mind, it used to be an act because there was an end result we were going for. Because in purity culture, you have so much misogyny that we got to dismantle and start looking at. And it took me a long time to get there. And I'm not saying that my ex-partners or anything, that they were problematic. I was, because I wasn't consenting and communicating that properly. And so now in where I'm at, because I took time to be celibate, I didn't even self-pleasure for a really long time as well, for about 6 months. And that was so damn difficult.
Yeah.
Because I had it in my mind, like, I need to release. And I was using the release as, like we were saying, pent up. And it was like, oh, I need to let it go.
Constriction.
And yeah. So I wasn't tending to myself properly in that. And I was starting to feel a little shame around, like, I would even cry afterwards, but it wasn't because it was enjoyable. I just had shame around that I wasn't really connecting with me. So then entering this space that I'm in now, where, you know, we have conversation, there is consent the whole time. Like, if I see that something is triggering my partner, hey, like you said, you want a sip of water? We can come back to this. This isn't an end result. Let's just, like, all the sensuality that exists is simply, like, could just be the electricity of your skin touching for a minute. It doesn't have to be this whole explosive thing. And then it will be maybe one day, whatever. It's just, there's levels to it. So I'm discovering a lot about myself, and there's so much terminology out there that I didn't recognize that I wasn't allowing myself to explore or to be explored. I wasn't experiencing myself being experienced, because you can quite literally be outside of yourself in that experience.
It's so sick.
It is. And it was like, after the, like, discovering what has been discovered now, I'm like, I will never unknow this. And there is such a high standard now, and I am worthy, and I receive this. And they're on the same page. So it's like, how can we keep, like, this just keeps building and building and building, because we're not at an end result.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's playtime. Like, this is, like, let it be something fun. This is not a chore.
No. And I think that the obligation space of, like, fulfilling the desire that somebody had in their eyes, you still have consent to that. So we check in all the time. Like, I'm a yes till no, because I've never been this version of myself. So I don't know what I'd like to explore. And I haven't said no yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
So I think the really beautiful thing here is, again, the consent that we give ourselves, the consent to enjoy. And if you are finding yourself that you can't even consent to that, then you're probably not actually enjoying.
And so here's, I guess, you know, the question is, okay, well, how does one start this journey? And I want to go back to this. You said something very sweet. You said there's, like, a auric element of my performances.
Yes.
And that is very new. I stopped dancing for several years. I thought someone really toxic in the community had ownership over these dances, which is just, like, ludicrous. And so I'm super grateful for the opportunity to have gotten back into it. And for those who are not familiar with Brazilian samba, which is one of my main styles, it comes out of Brazil. It's a dance for carnaval. It's like thongs and, like, bras that are just underwire and huge headdresses and, like, quite literally buy my shoes at the stripper store. You know, like, it's very out here. And we had some people from Brazil, and then the rest of the cast was mostly Brazilian, completely transformed my ability to show up in those costumes and as a physical performer than any American space I ever had. And that is really big, to be able to, like, be in a thong and having, you know, much older men walking around and feeling comfortable enough for me to, like, lean over on the side and give them a hug, just because I was, like, so grateful for what they taught me that day or something, and, like, not have it be weird. And so I woke up this morning and there was a TikTok, and it's this lady, she's probably, like, mid-60s, and she's saying that she's had a very strict vetting process on who she would have casual sex with, and American men almost never passed the test. And how much violence is involved in American sex. And I think, you know, there's definitely this element of, like, the Madonna whore, Virgin Mary binary thing of you're either, like, you know, for the streets or for the housewife life, right? And there's plenty of in between. But so my point is, you know, this consenting to oneself, I was able to then learn, because of the safe space that I was given, to show up as a sexual and sensual being on stage by myself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And retrospectively, I don't think I would be where I'm at with my sexuality with partners now had it not been for that space. I had to erase the myth that, like, I couldn't get a master's degree and be taken seriously online for content and mental health and wellness and the events that I host and whatever, like, articles that I continue to go and write. And also have dance videos of me. And I was like, forget that. Like, this is 22. I am not going to, not use my body for something that, like, I'm really talented at. Like, I am a dancer to the core. Like, that is part of my being. And the fact that I was allowing the patriarchy to control my perceived professionalism or intellectual contributions because they were going to be attracted to me? No. That's a you thing. That is not a me thing.
And when you were speaking about how, like, they, somebody maybe had ownership over dances and stuff, it's like, then you feel, again, like you don't have the governing over your body. So even in this space, you had somebody living vicariously through you instead of you living vicariously through yourself.
Totally.
So you finally consented to that space.
Totally.
And we're like, no, I'm this. And that's something in the last, like, year and a half that I've really been exploring, is like normalizing chest. As a non-binary person, I don't look at my chest and be like, oh, yay, these are titties are for dudes to look at. I don't give a shit. I just wanted to have my shirt off like my dad when he was mowing the yard. That's all I wanted.
So nice.
And so normalizing that space too, instead of sexualizing, everything is sexualized. And here, the porn industry and all of that, you don't, there's not a lot of, like, sensuality in it. It's a lot of, like, this space of, like, it's marketed for boys from 8 to 12 and it is in violence.
Yeah. Also, what the fuck with all the stepbrother, stepsister, stepmother, stepfather thing? Like, it's... Okay, so I've been subscribing. It's incredible. It's called X Confessions, and it's an ethical porn website.
Wait, what? I have never heard of this.
Oh my God, it's going to blow your mind.
Okay, I'm ready.
It's so hot. They've got, like, every kink you could think of, every situation. Some of the performers are real couples, and, like, you can see it.
I don't need to know this right now.
Okay, but here's the thing. I know I've been horny.
I mean, in the best.
Yep.
The best thing ever.
You just wait. I know, I want, like, a referral code. I feel like I've been telling all my friends. I'm like, can I be a part of this business? I really believe in it. But,
I'm going to sign up.
All of them are shot, most importantly, like a Sundance award-winning independent film.
Wow.
They are so artistic. There are so many other elements that allow the viewer to capture or to tap into the sensuality of the performers. It's just like nothing else. So, like, of course you're going to be turned on, but it's not like genitals in your face immediately. Right. Like, when you go on Pornhub, like, I was there yesterday doing, of course, research, like one does. It's like crotch in your face immediately. Like, it's very, and then while you're scrolling, looking at video options, there's advertisements of, like, a frame by frame, like, the fastest, most violent, like, gangbang. Yeah. And then you've got another, like, pop-up advertisement. Like, it is so overwhelming. And this is not to get all, like...
No, this is...
For
get
the
all
kids.
That.
No, but I'm like, this is their sex ed.
Right.
And we're looking around and trying to figure out why things are fucked in our society. We don't have any resources. And so the thing is, with this ethical porn, like, I pay for it. But let's be real. The majority of people are not paying for shit.
Right.
So it's a much bigger issue of exposure. And I think if you as oneself want your sexuality to be so pure and have all these conscious, interactions, if you're exposed to stuff like that, like, it's in your subconscious. And there's so much violence. Like, it's so violent.
Yeah. It's just not desirable for me, or it makes me feel like I'm not giving my partner what they need because their reaction isn't the same, So we get this idea in that, as well as you speaking to this site. This is amazing. I'm going to go peep it. I want to peep it right now, but we in the studio. But this is beautiful because I was actually talking to my partner, and it comes up sometimes, just like, I don't know. I have to be really honest. There's a space in time where we took a little clip just to, we're long distance. And back in the day, I mean, I've never experienced this before. So I was like, okay, here I am. Yes till no. And I was like, yes, let's do this. And in that, I was like, how amazing would it be for somebody to stumble upon footage like that versus the violent shit?
This is what you will find.
Uh-oh. But I'm saying, like, as you said, this is like educational in some instances. And I don't think that we have enough representation as well. There isn't actually. And so...
Talking about, I don't want to cut you off, but in terms of the conversations that they're having in these videos too, can I touch you? Can I take off my shirt? Like, they're even asking consent to expose themselves to the partner or the partners in the situation.
This is beautiful.
Like, everything is at a lower level, and then the receiver is like, you can go harder, or like, can I have more? Or I would like, there's lube in it. There's water in it. Like, it's realistic, you know? Would you like a toy? I would like a break.
See, we don't have this representation, so I guess we get to become this representation, even if it's just for like I don't like having I have ADHD and autism. My brain, sometimes having sex is difficult because my brain goes a million different ways. I can be present, and then something could spark it from whatever energy source, and all of a sudden I'm like, did I take the trash out?
I'm making a grocery list.
Yeah.
Like, curry chicken would be really good tonight.
And I'm like, oh yeah, right there. No, I'm like getting it off the shelf, not what you're doing to me. And so I just think that I didn't realize that I was having these little conversations with myself until I became so present. And so then that let me know that I'm actually enjoying it. But if my partner and I are drifting, then we're like, hey, let's not try to do all this other stuff. I don't want you to feel like I'm not present. I'm just having a difficult time. And as people with ADHD and autism, I think it's really beautiful to bring that up. I let my partner know, hey, I'm a little floaty today, or maybe I'm a little nonverbal, read my body a bit differently because maybe I don't know how to speak to it. So that's been a really good conversation as well. But I don't know if any of you all find out that in your ADHD and you're making a grocery list, pelvic
floor breathing.
Thank
Go
you.
Back to that breath.
Thank you. And just slowing the fuck down.
Yeah.
Speed down to slow up and take a minute, communicate.
Down to slow up.
That's what I say.
That's really nice.
Because I stroll, I don't walk.
Yeah. And if there's any pressure or concern, how am I going to read them? Or I don't know, we are such intelligent beings.
Right.
This mouth talking language business, this is new.
Right.
We've been looking at body language and feeling things for much longer than we've had the words. So
if we didn't see positive body language back in the day and all we heard was PDA, no PDA. I didn't see my parents be romantic with each other. I watched them fight.
Yeah.
I'm sure they had sex because I have siblings. Okay. But I never saw romance from my parents. I never saw sensuality. And in the love bond I'm in now, and I can't speak a whole lot, there are other eyes on us, not in a creepy way, but to protect identities and stuff, that I'm like, wow, how amazing that this person gets to witness love and sensuality and it not be, ew, gross, you're being gross, holding hands, yuck, kissing, it's not a thing. And I wish that I had that. I wish that I had seen that type of representation, as well as in, coming up from purity culture, that was only for the bedroom. And it was at dark and all these dumb things, to where it was such a shame body that you don't tap into your own body. How could you ever know? And if you're only there to please a man, because that's what the whole premise of religion is, then how would you ever know what pleasure is?
Yeah.
You're going to be scared of it because were taught it was sin.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge roadblock for me to get through. And I was even still using that kind of terminology in relationships. When I wasn't connecting with a partner, I would feel shame. And I would literally be thinking I was sinning because I didn't know, I just was so unaware of consenting to myself to enjoy pleasure. Yeah. Granted, because I am demisexual, I wasn't connecting. So it wasn't that it was wrong what I was doing. It was just understanding I didn't need to continue doing that. I just kept giving permission and allowing the space because we were together and we were monogamous. So
yeah, and these are conversations that have to be had, no matter the nature of the relationship. How do you feel about calling? How do you feel about texting? How do you feel about, affection if we're out grabbing some food or something, like culturally, I mean, you're bringing up purity culture, but I'm also thinking like I dated someone from the Middle East, and being in Dubai, they were like, you're going to get arrested if you hold hands. And I was like, that's just outrageous. And it was fine, but it was his level.
Right.
He was like, I could almost see him recoil. Whereas here in the States, he was like so like incredibly affectionate. But now having the eyes, like you're saying, of the entire community over there and his family was like, no, you don't do that. And that was super hurtful for me. And I wasn't able to remove myself in the moment because I'm so affectionate. Like I touch everybody. And so how then we touch our other community members that we're not sexual with varies so much. Like in other countries, it's not a big deal to see mother-daughter holding hands. We get approached like we're a lesbian couple and she's a cougar with my own mother. And it's super bizarre.
That is bizarre.
Yeah. And like my best friend, his uncle came over from Libya and he was trying to hold his hand in the Cherry Creek Mall. And he was like, Uncle, like we can't do this here. Like people will think something else. And he was so, he was from a very different generation. He was so like could not even comprehend how that would be the way that these weird Westerners interpret something,
Right.
So there's the level of, there's so many layers and just the lack of conversation.
And education.
It's just like, why would we think that we'd be in any better standpoint than we're at societally or personally?
Exactly. And that's like why I've been begging you to teach me some dancing, because that was the consent within community. Because I wanted to, there's all these spaces where I want to start stimming and unmasking and doing like more of like a parallel play outside of sexuality.
What's that?
So just like for me, I mean, parallel play a lot of times was used like in sex, both partners are like masturbating at the same time or things like that. But I'm bringing that into like a different space, which is, gradually coming over this way, which is like, okay, we just get to be alone together. Like you're going to work on something over here and with your headphones on. I'm going to be dancing in the corner, and so you're just like in the same energy, but you're like vibing to what works for you.
Thing. Yeah.
So in that like space, I really wanted to have a place where people could go to where like, you want to go out dancing. I don't dare go around dancing here in Denver for the most part because it's a giant sports bar here. I don't even know how to talk to it.
So accurate.
It's like,
good description.
I hate it. And so even as the person that I am, I'm shocked when straight men literally come and hit on me. I'm like, how unaware are you? Like, it's not even that I think that there's a preconceived notion of who I am. It's just like, I literally don't have an energetic field that would even welcome that. Like, you're not even bold. You're stupid. I don't want to have to educate you right now. Yeah. And so it's just like, I don't even pay it any mind anymore, but I don't like going out because I would be dancing. And even if I'm dancing with a friend and we're just having so much fun, then somebody wants to come behind me. Somebody wants to be like, oh my God, let me see you kiss. And it was just like, I wanted to have a space where we're all consenting together. And so like, if you're like teaching me dance and then consent within like touching in this platonic space and a sensual space, and that it's not going to lead anywhere odd, it's going to, or that would it be odd, that it's not going to lead anywhere that's hypersexual. It's going to lead to sensuality and feeling and understanding how our bodies are being embraced, even by just our platonic friends. And so that's why I just, for the longest time was like, I would love to know what that looks like. How can we create that?
Like, maybe it looks like a workshop and dance party.
Yes, this is what I've been trying to say.
Okay, got it. I was not picking up what you were putting down, but I am here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I think too, a lot of times that's just the aggression that we're taught. Like you go out and you're going to go like hook up with somebody and blah, blah, blah. And so the intention is like to get right behind somebody that's dancing freely and interrupt their energy and their space.
You know what I do? I'll look around and I'll be like, what's your name? Like really reverently to like freak the shit out of them. Or I'll be like, oh, we know each other. Just looking real sober. And they're like, this bitch is a psychopath. And I'm like, I might be, but why are you touching me? Like I literally don't know you. They don't even know what your face looks like.
No, and they don't care. That's the point because again, they come from the side of taking virginity.
Yeah. And it's sad because a lot of them, like, I think, and I'm saying them, I will say participators in aggressive, violent culture against anybody. A lot of them don't even realize it. And so then once they're faced, they kind of have this double take, like, oh shit, I don't know. I was just doing what I always do, what I see my brothers do, what I see my dad do, what I see.
And they get away with it, and they get what they want.
Yeah. And so there's, I believe, warranted frustration from those who have received that aggression. And I would say it's not our responsibility, but if we can find kindness in the way that we then deliver and educate our peers, our messages will be better received.
I agree. And I think even outside of like having whatever your sexual partners is, even in platonic spaces, it's really necessary too, because I am a very touching person. I will always ask for consent. Is it okay? Just let me know. Cause like sometimes I'm just like get carried away and I want to squeeze and embrace and love on everybody. But just that consenting to what feels appropriate and where, and what allows you to embrace yourself more versus just being there for the touch for someone else. Like you both can feel the electricity in it. And it doesn't all have to be sexual. It can be sensual. It can just be friendly. It can just be unconditional and understanding love.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that I'm learning is that love truly is kind. Like I would always be like, oh, it's patience, all that scripture crap. But it really is kind. It's taking the time for yourself to hear yourself say what you believe love to be, what you feel love to be. And so you're kind with yourself first. And then you get to have that conversation with others. And in that kindness, again, you're not losing a person in that strict judgment of like, well, that's not what I accept. You're like, oh, well, I see your point. Let me be over here. This is what it looks like for me. And then you come to a better agreement or, just a better space of understanding like what a person likes. I have friends that like, I can barely hug them when I say goodbye. They don't like touching, but I can do all those things. I'll just like act like I'm gonna, and then they laugh and stuff. But like, I don't want to disrupt their auric field because that's what's safe for them. They have a level of protection, or maybe touch is different for everybody. So that's not a space that I want to be in, is disrupting their peace. So that's what I've been talking about is like this consent to touch within dance and within our expressions. Even if we're just like joking around with a friend, because even in partnership dancing, or swaying, then it has to get like hypersexual. Let me like rub all on you. It's just like, let your partner just twirl in front of you and enjoy it.
And that's a big thing within the Latin dance community too. Like there's, bachata is a Dominican dance. It comes from, the casual streets of the Dominican Republic, and it was something that was fun. There's a lot of other Afro-Caribbean influences, and dance is so fun. Like I could go on forever about where it came from. But point is, it was not some like hypersexual. It was something that you would, see some lovers doing on one side and also see your elders doing on the other side. Right. Like it was just part of the culture. It wasn't a means to obtain something. And now there's a whole quote unquote style, we'll call it, called sensual bachata. And I just love to see the fucking colonizer aspect to it, because you find all these, like, no shade to Russian people, but it's like now it's all these Russian dancers and it's hypersexual, and they've taken virtually every African element out of it. So you've like super whitewashed it, you've hypersexualized it, and then now it's coming to our local clubs and is basically an excuse for, we'll just call them leads, usually men, to be like rubbing their crotch all on your leg and stuff. So I start kneeing dudes, no fucking problem. I'm gonna give you a little knee tap and tell you to back up, and if you're not getting it, like, we're done here. I have walked off the dance floor shamelessly because there is such a lack of communication and boundaries. I wish I knew I brought that up.
No, it's because we were just talking to like dance and consent with like what that looks like, I mean,
it's happening in every sector. Like, I think we could look at consent in every aspect of our life and see improvements. Whether it's, your boundaries at work, whether it's your personal consent with self, whether it's relationships, what you want or what you want to see, whether it's with strangers when you're interacting in a club atmosphere. Like, It's a lifestyle.
Thank you so much for, just bringing a lot of light to the topics that we were speaking to today. I'm really just very grateful to have you in my life, teaching me, guiding me, whether you believe that you are or not, you are teaching me. And you have graciously sat in space with me. Didn't even know that I was trying to figure these things out, but you have always been about consent. And you didn't even always do it verbally. You just do it in your entire essence, as I say. You just really do. You're very, very aware. Even though you may think you're not, your body language is the awareness, because you really do use that first language very effectively. So just know that. And you are one of these people that, and I'm kind of in the same boat, that we have people that are watching us and people that are observing us. And so the people that are watching, they're just waiting for you to fuck up, slip up, do something dumb so that they can say, see, I told you, I knew you weren't who you said you were, blah, 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 whatever. And then you got the people who are observing you, and they can't wait to celebrate you. They can't wait for you to meet these milestones. And so I be observing you, and I fucking think you are an incredible person. So thank you so much for being here today with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. What I want to say to you all, as we're just kind of like wrapping this up here, is my intention in these conversations, I'm not here like as a person to say that I know that I know everything, that I'm here to encourage you and empower you and do all that cheesy ass shit. It's just not my style. I'm just here to hold a conversation, almost like a journal. Hold a conversation as accountability to myself, to encourage myself as well. If you did find something that resonated here, that's amazing, because I didn't have representation back in the day. And sometimes if you don't have representation, be your own representation. You don't have a community, create your own community. You don't like how love feels like, go learn what you want it to feel like, to be like, and how you want to perceive it, further, to take away the perception is what I mean, to take away what you've had as the perception of love, change that for yourself. It's dialogue that we should have with ourselves all the time, but we lose sight of that because, again, most of us were grown up in a purity culture way, and our worth and our value is in this term that I really want to get rid of, virginity. And so on all the sides and all the spectrums of that, it's your power first and foremost. You decide. You get to govern that. I know that there have been individuals that have been abused, severely abused, and it's impossible to think that it could ever be your power. And there's somebody that said, no, but it's the haters that believe in you the most. It's the people that rob you of your joy that literally see your power the most. That's why they take it from you. So just recognizing that you get to call all that in, because that was not consensual. That was not with your permission. It's been your power all along, and own it. And it takes time. Healing is not linear, and it's just, you're going to be triggered here and there, but also just have space and grace with yourself. Consent to yourself enjoying the healing process. It is painful, but enjoy it. That sounds crazy, but the tears are for you to release. The laughter is for you to embrace in these situations, and just know that there are many people that are in the same boat. And as a community, we can recreate what all of that looks like. Nothing is in stone except Rosetta. So I got issues, y'all. But what I'd like to say to encourage myself this day is to continue earnestly creating in love. I'll see you all soon. Be well.
Yo, it's Julius, and I just made traveling easier with the motorized scooter suitcase. Let me say it again. motorized scooter suitcase. Yeah, that's right. The luggage has got a built-in electric motor. So the suitcase, I can ride it and glide through the airport or the train station, through downtown, and it all fits in the overhead storage bin. No more crowded terminals trying to say, excuse me, y'all gonna see me gliding through there. I can hop in and off the light rail like it's no problem. I'm not struggling to carry these heavy ass bags of podcast equipment anymore. All you gotta do is just click the link in the episode description that says Smart Suitcase. Click Smart Suitcase and see what I'm talking about. I'm telling y'all, it's going to change the way, if you're traveling, this is going to change everything. Click the link. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.